Kick-Ass Switch, putting the K in magic. I'm Joanna DeVoe, and you're watching another episode of Every Which Way. This time featuring Vanessa Valencia, the super creative creatrix behind A Fanciful Twist. And if you don't know what A Fanciful Twist is, you are in for a super yummy surprise, because A Fanciful Twist is this whole magical world that you can dip into anytime you kind of want to escape into a fantasy world. It involves photography, collage, painting, fashion, sculpture, gardening, just about everything in creative that you can think of. Vanessa, she's into it, and she makes it a part of this world in a way that is cohesive and consistent. She's been doing it since 2007 online, and here's the thing. She makes her living being an artist, which is something that I know so many of you are interested in and frustrated by, and your families are probably scared to death if you made the declaration that you want to be an artist for a living. So this is an interview that might really resonate with you. It does me. I am a person who has been told on a number of occasions that I live in a fantasy world, and I can tell by the tone of voice of the people saying that to me that they don't exactly mean it as a compliment, but I take it as a compliment, because without people that live in a so-called fantasy world, we would not have the art of people like Jack White, my rock god, even Martha Stewart, J.K. Rowling, Tim Burton, George Lucas, Betsy Johnson. Those whole worlds would not exist if somebody didn't have a really rich fantasy life and the gumption to try to bring that into the reality for us all to enjoy. And Vanessa is one of those people. And so I'm just so excited to share this with you. I think you're really going to love it. It is an audio interview, but there's a whole montage of visuals of this world that she's created that you can look at while you're listening to the interview. And then, of course, I urge you to run right over to A Fanciful Twist and check everything out. Check out what she's got for sale, check out her blog, and check out the Mad Tea Party that is happening next weekend. I'm going to be a part of that. It would be awesome if you could be a part of that too. So without any further ado, here she is, Vanessa Valencia of A Fanciful Twist.
Hi, Vanessa! Welcome to Every Which Way!
Hi, Joanna.
Hi, yay! I'm so happy that you agreed to talk to me today in time to talk about the Mad Tea Party. And just,
it's so exciting. It's coming up so soon, just a few days.
I know. I'm going to participate in that. And I just love the whole world you've created with A Fanciful Twist. I've actually been like a closet fan for quite a while.
I had no idea.
Yeah, I'm like a lurker. I have quite a few of your artworks in my Etsy favorites, and so it's really fun.
I didn't even know. That was such a secret.
I'm sure you have many lurkers. So you have this tea party coming up, and I was like, oh, I'm totally going to do it this year. And so I feel like we should tell people about that right off the bat, since it's almost time to do that. And it's a pretty fun thing that you have going on.
Yes, this is our 7th one, which feels so strange. I don't know where the time has gone. But this is the 7th one, and basically everybody has their own tea party and takes pictures and then shares the pictures or videos or whatever they do on a set date. And we've been doing that for 7 years.
How fun. And it's a blog thing. You say we, but I thought it's your thing, right? And then other people join in.
When I say we, I mean the other bloggers.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's all blog-based. I missed that whole part. But it's all bloggers, people who have a blog, who want to join in. Of course, people who don't have a blog, who just visit the blog, they can see what's happening and just be a part of it by peeking in. But people who do have a blog, they can have their own party and take pictures, and on the day of the event, everybody just shares their pictures and videos, and it's good fun. And then you can blog hop, and I put a list on my sidebar of everybody who's joined in.
How
So that way
fun.
on the day of the party, you can visit anybody you want to visit.
The internet is so amazing.
I know, isn't it?
It's so neat that you can connect with people like that, and I bet people go crazy with the Tea Party thing, like taking...
It's so much fun because they can get their kids involved, they can make all sorts of things. The actual reason I ever started it was because summer felt so slow and boring.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so used, I started blogging in 2007, so blogging was really huge then.
Right.
And it was so slow in the summer, and I couldn't believe it. And I thought, we need something exciting. We need excitement in our lives. So I just thought, let's have a mad tea party. And I could not believe how many people enjoyed that with me.
Yeah, it's a fun theme. It's such a fun theme, and it really ties into everything you do. We have pictures scrolling over us talking right now, so people can see what you do, and you create this whole magical world that kind of is its own mad tea party, so it fits right in with all of that.
It's so much fun. I enjoy it. It's so hot here when I do my display and everything, but you have to take a moment just to enjoy it. At the end, after I take all my pictures, which is usually at the last minute,
Mm-hmm.
I have to force myself to sit down and enjoy it myself and have fun, because you'll get so carried away taking pictures and preparing, just like in real life. You know, you throw a party, and before you know it, the party's over and you never sat down.
Right, yeah.
So I do the same thing. I take a moment to sit and enjoy it.
Oh, cute. Maybe, do you give us all little cheers, like a little virtual cheers?
I always think to myself, let's see, what time is it? I know when I'm posting the tea party, I always post it at midnight of the day that it'll be, because people in the UK and Australia and New Zealand, they're all waiting.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fun. I'm always like, oh, I wonder who's sitting around waiting. And the second I post it, all these people pop up. And when you start to see what everybody does, it makes it so exciting. You just can't believe what people do. You know, all of us carting typewriters and clocks and everything into the garden. It's just so much fun. It's so much fun.
Oh, wow. Your whole brand has it always been a fanciful twist, like since 2007?
Yes, since 2000, well, actually, it was December of 2006 when I decided to start blogging. I was so taken by it. I thought it was just the most exciting thing ever. So I decided to start blogging, and I thought, what on earth is the name of my company or who I am? What is that? And I thought, well, it'll come to me. And one day I was sitting in a cafe, and all of a sudden, this like warm breeze. It was winter, and this warm air with peppermint kind of swirled around me. And I thought, a fanciful twist. That's it.
Oh.
And that's how that came to be.
How sweet. And it's so fanciful. It's fairies and magic and elves and the forests. I have a thing about the forests that you create. I love those.
I know. Isn't that so? I don't know what it is about elves and mushrooms. And...
Yes. Those little Amanita muscaria, or however you say it, the little red and white polka dot guys. They're so cute. And you use it's, you know what I enjoy about your work, which I think is a sign of authenticity and purity, is that you use mixed media. So you use all these different materials, and you make dolls, you paint, you do illustrations, you do photography, but it all feels like the same world. So it feels like this doll could just walk right out of that photograph and go into that illustration and hang out, and this collage could come over here. It all feels like the same world, you know? I think that's why people love you.
I'm so glad you're saying that. I'm so glad you're saying that, because to me, sometimes I feel like I'm just overwhelming everything that I'm doing, that I'm just going in way too many directions. But I can't help it, because it's not that I get bored, but some days I wake up and I think to myself, there is no way that I can touch clay today. But I totally want to play in glue and water. Or there's no way I could think about lifting a paintbrush today, but I totally want to play in clay. So I have to just go with how I feel. That's a huge part of my life, my being. Everything is just going with what I feel in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad you say that there's a bit of authenticity there, because it totally is authentic.
And
whatever I'm feeling in the moment is what is happening.
And consistency. I think it's because you're being true to you. So that world is always...
Right.
It kind of reminds me of a super, super deliciously girly Tim Burton world. You know, like, you can see a Tim Burton thing. It can be a doll or a movie or a book, and you're like, that's Tim Burton. I feel like you can see a fanciful twist anything and say, that's a fanciful twist.
That's funny, and that's funny that you say Tim Burton, because I get that a lot. The whole Tim Burton, a lot, and I think I should call Tim Burton up.
Yeah, right?
But it just, I guess, maybe it is also, like you said, the consistency. Maybe it's, even though I'm painting one day and plain and clay the second day or the next day, maybe it's that I'm always making something, so it kind of runs in the same feel or theme. But my sister always says, oh my gosh, the eyes of all your characters look the same. It really weirds me out. She says, it's like they're all from the same family.
Yeah. I think
and I said, they are.
The best
They definitely are.
artists, the best artists do that. Mark Ryden and Lori Early, and
Yes,
I
love
I really like lowbrow art a lot, and I love when an artist, just like what we're talking about, creates a consistent world, because if you're going to be a fan, sometimes you just want to dip into that world, and knowing that it's there for you to dip into whenever you want to, like, tap into that magic, I think that's so great.
And it's so unintentional on my part. I don't even intend it until, you know, it's mentioned to me from time to time, and I just think to myself, and I don't even really see it, because everything is so different to me, the maker. I'm in the box, so I see everything so differently than I'm sure everybody else does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you know, also, though, too, you've managed to turn it into a business. So, I mean, I think that's the dream of every artist, and it's something that so many people struggle with, which is why I mentioned authenticity, because I think people will be... They think they have to stick to, like, one thing, but what I think you really have to stick to is yourself and your point of view and who you are, and keep telling that over and over again. And right before I talked to you, I, like, hopped over to your Etsy shop to get some stats. And I'm like, okay, this woman has 4,371 sales, 7,293 admirers, 5-star ratings, thousands of glowing reviews, and I'm like, okay, she knows what she's doing. And this is something that so many friends of mine online are trying to do. So, would you attribute that to just following your heart and going with the flow, or did you actually think, I want to make a living doing my art, and this is how I'm going to do it? Etsy!
Well, it's so funny, because when you just said you managed to make a business out of it, I guess I see it so differently. I know people are like, Vanessa, you should do this, and you should do that, and you should do this, and grow, but I just take little baby steps doing what I want along the path. Mm-hmm. And so when you say you've managed to make a business out of it, that even surprises me a little bit, because every time I make something, I always think, will this be the last thing that somebody ever gives a home to? Will this be... So I haven't really realized that I've made a business out of it. I kind of just trek along doing my own thing little by little.
Sweet.
So
maybe that has to do with the purity. Maybe that's why it has stayed pure all this time.
And also my whole life, my entire being is completely wrapped up in what I make and what I do. I decided a long time ago, when I was about 18 years old, I decided this is my path, this is what I'm doing. Even though I went to university and, you know, studied business and all of these things, I always knew that I probably would never have a family or do things like that, because I knew that my focus was my work, my art, and I had to do that just to stay true to myself.
Right.
So maybe that it all just kind of morphs together and creates what it is. I don't know.
Yeah, and you know what I was thinking too, looking at your bio, you talked about going to school. You actually have a Bachelor of Science in International Retailing and Consumer Studies. But you were saying you just wanted to do the art, but maybe like the universe had other plans for you. And
my parents said, we will not send you to college if you study art. You have to study business. You have to.
Yeah. Well, you know, maybe that was for a reason. Maybe that's what's allowing you to sustain your artistic life in the way that you're able to do now.
Right. It definitely gave me a balance and taught me, okay, here's the business side and here's the art side. I am realistic about, you know, what do I have to spend for my business and what am I doing and can I survive? I'm realistic about all of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, you have to be, because then you can't keep it up, you know? I mean...
Right. The thing that really helped was that in the midst of being in college, my father said to me one summer, I think it was my sophomore year at the U of A, my father said, you should get a real estate license. And I said, why? I'm studying retailing. Why would I want to be a realtor? And he said, you just should, because it would be a great thing to have in your back pocket, and you never know what'll happen. So I went to real estate school, but I didn't get my license. And then when I graduated from the U of A, I didn't want to go all these places where my degree would take me. I just wasn't ready to travel far away. So I then got my license, took all these exams, went into real estate, and it was funny because through real estate, I was meeting all these people, and on weekends, I would have shows of my art and my jewelry. I make jewelry, too. And that was excellent, because all of a sudden, I was able to make money to save, to quit my job in 2007 and do art full-time.
Wow.
So it was a great balance. I was doing business, but I still had the freedom to make art and make jewelry and have shows. So it kind of all worked. I just went on my path. I always believe that if you say to yourself, universe or whatever people believe in, just take me on my path. I will work very hard and just keep me on the path that is my path that I'm supposed to walk. And that's what I've been saying to myself for 20 years now. And here I am doing what I want to do. It's not always easy. You know, it's hard to be an artist and you struggle sometimes, but when I say here I am, I mean at least I'm getting to do something that I love.
Absolutely.
And that's important.
Absolutely. So many people have that dream, and the internet has made it like look like it's possible, and I think some people even think it looks like it's easy. But I know from what I do, like you were talking about on your website, how you're a one-woman operation, you make the art, you ship it personally. You have so many photographs that you edit. They all have a watermark on them. And I would love to do that for my blog because I'm artsy and inclined that way. But I'm like, how in the hell is she doing all of this? She must not sleep. She's definitely a vampire.
Just do it all at once. Like what I do now, because every so often magazines ask me if they can use some of my pictures. So what I do now is I take a picture. I choose that day what I want to use, or choose within a couple days, whenever I'm going to write a blog post, what I want to use. I look at them, brighten them, whatever they need, watermark. So I save the huge file and watermark a smaller file that I put on my blog. So everything is done already as I go.
Right. It's so smart that you Sorry, go ahead.
It's too daunting. Sorry. I always talk over people. I'm so sorry.
Go for it.
It's too daunting to think, how can I watermark all my photos? No, I didn't. I do it gradually as I go. Mm-hmm. So if you have a little, organization like that, then it's very easy.
Yeah. It's smart, too, because I'm sure people want to share your work, and there's not a lot you can do to control that on the internet, so having your name there is pretty important.
Right. I always thought it was kind of obnoxious of me to do that, but then when Pinterest came along and, people's pictures get pinned and they're like, oh, my picture's on there and nobody knows where it came from and it doesn't go to my link. I'm so happy now that I have a watermark on all my photos.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You got to do it. And, I mean, people don't even do it to be rude. They do it out of a love for you and what you're doing. They want to share it, but then it gets to the next person, and nobody knows who originally created
put
it.
On Tumblr, or somebody put it, somebody grabbed it from who knows where. They saw it on another blog, and before you know it, it's totally, who did it is totally lost. Who made,
yes.
The photograph is totally lost.
That kind of reminds me, too, I was wondering, especially because you've been doing this publicly online since 2007, and that's like 100 dog years or internet years, really. I mean, you're like old school. I'm wondering have you had a big problem with copycats? Like people being like, ooh, I like that, and trying to make your art, basically.
In the beginning, I had people like stealing my files before I was watermarking. That's what got me watermarking. People, and I know like a Korean company had taken some of my stuff and put it like on wallets and things like that. And then I do a lot of tutorials and things with Stampington, you know who Stampington is, right?
Oh yeah, I have a little note to ask you about that right here.
Okay, so, sometimes you share your work, and it's such a tricky, difficult situation when people want to make what you're what you're teaching, but then they also want to then open a shop that looks a lot like yours and has a huge, and you know what it is? I think what happens is that when people are making something themselves, they forget, because you're in the process of creating yourself, they forget that it's somebody else's idea and style. Mm-hmm. So then they get kind of carried away with it a little bit. And I always say, I am so happy if you try my style and make art like me at home. But don't, if it's okay with you, please, don't, open a shop with paper dress girls that look just like mine, just because, not because I want to be controlling or I want the market on paper dress girls. No, not at all. Because you're not being true to yourself if you do that. Mm-hmm. And my thing is, if you want to make art like other people, just to practice at home, that's excellent. And you should. That's how I learned. My mother would give me a picture of a Picasso painting and be like, here, copy that. Yeah. And I would, I was 11 years old copying these paintings. But that helped me find out who I am and grow my own techniques and abilities so that when you are ready to open your own shop, you're sharing something that's all your own. And by trying other people's techniques, you will find your own voice. But It's so important not to say, okay, Vanessa made, or whoever made this painting, and I'm going to copy it exactly, and then I'm going to put it in a shop, in an Etsy shop, because the truth is it makes the person, people notice. And that is what always makes me cringe when people email me. And I'll get lots of emails, and they'll say, someone is making art like yours, and I just feel bad for the person. Yeah. Because I just feel like I don't want them to look like a copycat. The whole thing just makes me cringe.
Yeah, me too. I feel the same way. People do that with all mediums, and you have a very generous way of looking at it.
I mean, yes, if somebody took my art and was mass producing it and selling it at Michael's or wherever, I would be upset. Right. That hasn't happened, so that's good.
Well, you mentioned Stampington, and I actually wanted to talk about that because I noticed Somerset Studios, they put out the best magazines, but they seem to love you. They seem to love you and have featured you quite a bit. And I'm like, is there an affiliation there, or like what is going on? They just love your work?
No, they just ask me from time to time, Vanessa, do you have anything brewing that you can share, or do you have any ideas for something for Christmas or something for Halloween? And of course I always say yes because I love doing it. Mm-hmm. And then I just go for it. Yeah. Most of the time, I just love, even if it's something out of my comfort zone. They once asked me to be in Somerset Workshop, and that was like stepping out each piece and sending each stepped out piece for like 15 pieces in the mail. And that was scary, but I loved that I challenged myself to do that because I got it done in the end, even though it was daunting and scary. And now it kind of opens me up to say, oh, I can do that, and maybe I could do something more if somebody asked me.
Yeah. You have an
adventurous...
adventurous...
You can just keep going.
Sorry.
No, once you challenge yourself, it's easy to just, keep growing and growing.
Yeah. You have an adventurous spirit. Not that I'm stalking you, but I knew I was going to talk to you just now, so I went... there's a problem with your website. It is so addicting, and I have in the past... My favorite thing that you have is this little... I don't know what to call it, a little banner on the sidebar of your blog that says a peek inside. And if you click on that, be prepared to lose a large chunk of your life. But what happened is I was like, oh, I'm going to talk to her. I should refresh my memory on some of this stuff and read her bio. And then I was almost late to call you because I'm sitting there looking at all of this.
That's so funny.
You're so fun. And you were talking about being a kid and exploring caves, by yourself.
Well, I grew up in the desert. Yeah, I grew up in the desert. And I lived in this little town, a border town with not a ton of people. And my father was in the produce industry, so we lived in that little border town that they grew up in. We lived there, all the time, full time, but we would leave for 4 to 6 months in the summer to go live in California because the produce business then changes to California where you get your produce and such in summer.
Mm-hmm.
So in summer we would go. But our home base was the desert. And I was always fascinated by it. And we lived in this little neighborhood with lots of kids up until I was 6. And then my father moved us to the middle of nowhere, Arizona. And there were mines on our property. And in the middle of nowhere, absolutely nowhere, down in a big canyon is a Dick Tracy era rusted out car. And just seeing that as a kid made me think, how did that get there?
Yes.
So I would go exploring and come to find out there were miners down there, and I found all this mining gear, and so I was fascinated. I became fascinated with everything old and crystals and rocks, and I wanted to find gold, and just having that time to explore was so wonderful. But now you can't explore those areas alone like I used to because there's a lot of illegal immigrants coming across the border. So now when you go to the areas down in the valleys where I used to explore, you'll see a lot of clothes and backpacks.
Oh, weird.
And garbage because people hide out there now in the middle of nowhere.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of creepy.
Yeah, and real.
And real. But back then when I was a kid, I would go exploring in the mines and tell stories to myself, and it was just fantastic. It was such a wonderful childhood. And to think it was the desert, maybe that's why I'm so obsessed with the forest.
Right, yes. I have that same thing. I grew up in Bakersfield, and when I lived there, it was just a lot of dirt. So I
lived in Bakersfield, too. I've lived there as well.
No way! Oh, so you know.
Yeah, some of the summers when we had to go for my father's produce business, sometimes we lived in San Diego, sometimes we lived wherever he had to be for business. So we'd live in Carlsbad, Bakersfield, San Diego. Wow. Yeah, so I know what it looks like.
Yep. I was in the Southwest, and it was just so much dirt.
Right.
And hardly any trees.
Yes, no trees. Well, here we have, where I live now, it's funny. Where I'm living right this minute, it's an hour from the heart of Tucson, Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's right where the Santa Catalina Mountains begin, and they are forest at the top. The mountains are forest.
Oh, nice.
So it's funny to live in a place literally where the desert meets the forest.
Oh, how cool.
You get so strange.
You get the magic of both worlds.
Yeah, if you want to go up there, you'll totally see the red and white mushrooms.
Oh,
you'll see
I love
trees
that.
and deer. But my point is that I have big trees here where I live, mesquite trees,
Mm-hmm.
which you don't have probably
No.
in Bakersfield.
Well, I'm not in Bakersfield anymore. I haven't been there in a long time.
Right, but Bakersfield probably doesn't have those.
No.
That's funny.
Yeah.
And did you have mines? Did you have exploring like that?
No, we
that?
had oil fields, so we would, mess around with, the oil derricks and stuff like that, and that was our danger.
I'm completely obsessed with all the abandoned mining towns, and I remember going into houses when I was a little girl, and the houses were absolutely filled with furniture and clothes and treasures and photos.
Whoa.
And it was like they had just got up and left.
This is making so much sense. This feels like this formed your aesthetic to some degree.
Yes, that's what I was just going to say. It totally does. And it's funny because I grew up with parents who hated old things, like, vintage and antiques. I didn't grow up with anything antique, and they like big, brand new and modern. And that's what I grew up with, new and modern and big. And I never, and now I like little, old, and antique.
Yep. And it's funny. It's funny because you've created this whole timeless world. It has all these, vintage elements to it, but kind of timeless in a way. But you did it using, the most modern thing in the world, the internet.
I know. Isn't that so strange? I've always found that to be such an interesting thing.
Mm-hmm. It's like the past meeting the future.
Totally. Especially when you see blogs where people are back to farming and yet they're sharing it all on their Instagram or their blog.
Yes.
It's fantastic though to be able to, I used to be a wild woman who went out dancing and had lots of parties and, dressed up fancy, and now I'm in mud-covered, white clothes, gardening, and not having very much contact with people. So it's great to have the internet, and it's great to have a blog, and it's great to have friends and people out there somewhere that you can talk to.
Nice. Well, I wanted to ask you, I always ask people, what's your best tip for creating the kick-ass life of your dreams? But what would be your tip for somebody who wants to start? Even though I know you started in 2007, that's kind of a different...
Right.
It's like a whole other world, actually, now.
It is. And I actually started before that, because I always had a plan that this is what I wanted to do. But I would salt away money, and I would, get ready. I got really ready to quit my job, to the point that everyone said to me finally, because I don't like change very much, and everybody said, quit real estate. Even, the boss and everybody there were like, Vanessa, you have to leave. Go make art. Get out of here.
No. Well, would that be a tip that you would give, a newbie? Don't quit your day job until you've got everything set up and...
Oh, yeah, because there's no way you can create when you're all stressed out over money.
Mm-hmm.
Being all stressed out over money is the worst. So what I did for many years is I found a balance between, making art and having my job, making art on the weekends and making art in the evenings, just to stay sane. And sometimes I miss that. I miss that time where I was so eager to make art because I only had 2 days to make it. Or so you can still make art and have an online shop and do what you want to do while you have a day job. I would say do them both if you can.
Right.
For a while.
Right.
Until you notice that, okay, maybe this is working, maybe I'm having a lot of sales, maybe I can really do this.
Right, yeah. And it takes time. It takes time to find your tribe and to make money.
Yeah, you don't want to be worried about money. I can't create when I'm worried about anything.
Yeah.
So I work very hard to keep my life as stress-free as possible. So I think, don't quit your day job, but make stuff. And, I did a lot of shows. I don't like doing shows anymore, but I'm kind of feeling like a jonesing to want to do it again. I just had to take a 7-year break. But do shows and just become a part of it. See if it's what you really want to do. Because the fantasy of, making making beautiful things to sell might go away when you actually really start to do it.
Right.
The fantasy is always better than reality. Unless reality works out. And it's still hard. I mean, I work so hard to, like I said, keep a beautiful frame of mind. I spend a lot of time in my garden because it brings me a lot of peace.
Mm-hmm.
And it helps me to stay in a place where I can create, still keep my dreams alive. It's easy for the news and awful things to kind of start to tarnish that kind of dream world that you have in your mind.
Right.
So it's really important to treat your dream world just like you do your body, you know, healthy, feed it good stuff, and nurture it, and be good to your soul and your mind, because I don't know, for me, I have to be in a beautiful frame of mind before I can create anything.
Oh my gosh, that is so beautiful. I'm so happy you just said that. It's the perfect way to end this. That is a huge takeaway. That's one of my favorite interview moments ever. That is such a good little bit of wisdom right there. It's about the art of living, and I love that you talk about protecting that like you take care of your body. It's so great. I want to read something that I stole off your, I think it's in your bio, but it's so beautiful. And I think you just sort of were paraphrasing the message you got from your parents. You said, it's a little bit long, so bear with me, but you said, nothing can break you, nothing can take away your imagination, nothing can stop you from creating, no one can take away your wonderful spirit. Dreams do come true, they really do, and it is true. Dreams do come true if you believe, so hold on tight to them, never give up, and never let any other person take any of that passion away from you. You are yours. Protect your little soul and heart. The only person you have who will be with you through everything and hold your hand and love you is you. Yay!
Oh my gosh.
How awesome is that?
That's the truth. That's the truth.
Oh, I love that.
And you have to remind yourself of it all the time. You know, life is hard and it kicks you around, and you always have to come back to, I think it's good for everybody to write up something like that for themselves and then just refer to it every time things get tough.
I love it. Well, thank you for sharing yours with ours and the whole beautiful, magical world that you have created. I hope lots of my listeners participate in this tea party because I'm going to be doing it. I think it's so fun.
I'm so excited. Just a few more days and I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing yet.
I don't either yet, but I know I'm going to do it. So I guess we'll surprise ourselves. Thank you.
Hopefully everybody will be there.
Thank you so much for participating and talking to me today. This was awesome.
Thank you. You're great. You're great.
Yay, much love. Peace to you.
Yay, thank you.